Hello and welcome back to Umineko When They Cry. When we last let off, there was a lot of arguing. Yeah, I thought we were getting the beach episode with the kids, but no. It was just a bunch of adults fighting with one another. Crazy stuff, I know. I mean, I have nothing else to say, really, so, let's just get into this. We crossed the hull again on our way to the entrance. As we did, we once again spotted that witch's portrait. However, spotted is probably not the best word to describe that experience. It was more like our eyes were inexorably drawn to it. That woman's eyes, with their sage-like glamour, definitely had the power to make those who viewed it stand rooted to the spot. So this is the witch Beatrice. I wonder if that story's true. Battler doesn't believe? Back when he had asked what the picture was, the first person to tell him had been Maria. Therefore, when Battler showed signs of doubt, Maria must have felt that Battler didn't have faith in her. Of course, that wasn't what Battler meant. Maria ran up to the portrait and began banging on a plate hanging below it. Maybe the title of the portrait was written there. Maria, trying to prove that she wasn't lying, obstinately continued to hit the plate. Ha, sorry about that. It's not like I doubt anything you said, Maria. Ooh, Battler believes. Ooh. When he patted Maria's head and apologized, she seemed to accept it, sticking out her chest and proudly oohing. I still don't know how that sound's supposed to be said. What's this? My beloved witch Beatrice. Behold the sweet fish river. What's with this weird, huge epitaph? The plate did have the title of the portrait written on it, but it was much too big to contain only that. Someone clearly has a... I was gonna say crush, but then I realized that, it's much more of an obsession in the case of Kinzo. Beneath the title was what appeared to be a long epitaph. If you just skimmed over it, several unnerving words would jump out at you. Incredible, isn't it? Grandfather had that made. Pretty deep, huh? I know! It's the place where the gold's hidden! Wait, is that the story about the Ushirimiya family's hidden gold? Now there's another thing I remember from long ago. Hold on, Aniki, is this for real? Grandfather had this made, but he never said anything about this picture or the epitaph. Even so, amongst the family, it is often whispered that it indicates the location of Grandfather's hidden gold, and that he will relinquish the inheritance and the gold to the person who solves the riddle. Oh, Beatrice. Huh? I heard that too! Lots and lots of gold. Well, something like that. Something like 10 metric tons of gold bars. I think it's fake, though. Still, when you read about it in an epitaph like this, it almost seems real. I think I already explained Grandfather's upbringing, but let me also mention the Ushirimiya family's legend of the gold. Grandfather succeeded the Ushirimiya family after it was destroyed in the Great Kanto earthquake, and by successfully riding the stormy seas after the war, he managed to accumulate great wealth. That much of the story everyone knows. However, this is where the strange part begins. I wonder what the strange part might be. I mean, let's see. Based on what Kinzo has shown us so far, it's well, obviously it has something to do with Beatrice. Everyone knows, but the strange part begins. It's definitely has something to do with... Maybe I should just read it and find out. Part of it involves grandfather's black magic obsession, so its credibility is extremely low, but... well, wait until the end before you doubt or make fun of it. After the war, grandfather correctly predicted what the future would hold and won in a huge gamble, accumulating a vast store of wealth. But there is a mysterious legend about how he gained his initial funding. Grandfather came from a branch family and had no connections in the business world or the financial world. Even though he had later built connections with the occupying forces, he supposedly started as a nameless person who hadn't yet gained anyone's trust. It takes trust to gather money. There's no way anyone would lend money to someone they didn't trust. How did grandfather, who had no reputation at all, manage to obtain his first vast chunk of funds? When asked that question, grandfather supposedly answered like this. On a certain day, I encountered the Golden Witch Beatrice. Grandfather then went on and on about his continuing research into alchemy and techniques for summoning demons in order to become a great magician. And the entity summoned as the result of the demon calling ceremony was the Golden Witch Beatrice. He then apparently made a contract by which he would receive fortune and honor in exchange for his own soul. The witch then granted grandfather 10 tons of gold. Curious, how much is 10 tons of gold worth? Wait, let's see. Oh my god. Okay. So it says... oh, actually, I don't know how recent this is. Okay. As of now, gold is worth... okay. 10 tons of gold is about 55.8 million. 55.886. Okay, I'm going to multiply that by 10. Let's see. Times 10 is 558,863,600 Crazy, I can't imagine having that much money. Grandfather used this gold as collateral to prepare a vast quantity of funds, which he then used to multiply his wealth many times over and revive the Ushirmiya family. It seems the story so old that even our parents were told it when they were still children. So back when our parents were young, they explored this island in all sorts of ways, believing that the gold grandfather had received from the witch might be hidden somewhere. However, since there was the danger of them getting lost in the abandoned forest, grandmother began to spread the story that the witch lived in the forest and approaching it was forbidden. I remember that old story. When we were little, we also went all over the island searching for treasure after our parents told us about it. Didn't we get lost in the forest once and start crying until some of the servants found us? Our parents got so mad. Dang, that takes me back. Ah, the good old days. We sure were idiots, weren't we? After all, grandfather only bought this island after using those funds to get rich, right? That means he must have had this gold before coming here. There's no way the gold's on this island. That's not necessarily so. Maybe the gold was hidden on the island from the beginning, and he bought the whole island just to ensure that it'd be his and his alone. It was a whole 10 metric tons of it, right? It seems more realistic that he'd try to secure the place where it was hidden rather than try to move it all. This epitaph was made 2 years ago, and since grandfather wrote it himself, yeah, it does make the legend of the gold seem more believable. The so-called witch's gold that revived the Ushirmiya family weighed 10 tons. Maybe that's sleeping somewhere, ready to be turned over to whoever can solve grandfather's riddle. Maybe that's why he did it. I guess that sounds like grandfather's style or something. If it's true, that's pretty incredible. The epitaph carved into the plate was very mysterious, with something like a poem or a song written on it. That text was incredibly disturbing, filled with the signs of grandfather's black magic hobby, and its contents were in truly bad taste. I can't remember if we've already read this epitaph or not, because if not, then I really want to know what it says, because, like, you know, you keep telling me about how all frightening and disturbing it is, but can I believe that? What if it's just some, like, milquetoast kind of weak sauce stuff? But it could definitely be viewed as a puzzle, which, if solved, might lead to the hidden gold. Whether that's what he intended or not, I can't even imagine what his true motive might have been. All we know for sure is that grandfather put this shady epitaph here so that everyone in the family could see it. We also know that he's hinted at the existence of the gold without ever talking about where it might be hidden, at least so far. These facts then were embellished by the imaginations of our parents, who were convinced that grandfather was challenging us to a battle of wits. Sounds just like my dad, so greedy that he'd take something like this so seriously. He may laugh at grandfather's black magic obsession, but he'd still believe the story about the hidden gold. It just sounds so good. Well, it's certainly not a realistic story. At that time, when grandfather was still nameless and had no connections, there was no way anyone would just lend him a massive quantity of gold bars for free. If such a person actually did exist, it's not unthinkable that grandfather would call such a sponsor a witch. Yeah, but it's 10 tons! 10 tons! If you cash that in, how much would it come to? Oh, I guess me looking it up was kind of useless. I mean, it'd have to be a ridiculous amount, right? It certainly would be a ridiculous amount. They say that the total amount of gold mined by humankind since the dawn of history is 100,000 metric tons at most. Yeah, I saw something like that when I looked it up. If all the world's goal is Earth, like 11 billion? Maybe it was billion or trillion. I mean, I know that's a big difference, but there were a lot of numbers, and I didn't really count. That's 1/10,000th of all the gold humankind has obtained throughout history should belong to just one person is just insane. On top of that, this witch supposedly had all that gold collected in one place and was able to lend it to grandfather just like that. Unless she magicked it up. I mean, isn't that what Kinzo was saying at the beginning? Like, once he's dead, all of it's gonna go away? Like, maybe the gold only exists for as long as he's alive, because it's magic gold. Snaps. We're not talking about any ordinary person. Well, to me, that 10 tons number seems pretty fishy. After all, no one's actually seen it except grandfather, right? Even if we assume that some generous witch existed and lent him some gold, maybe it was closer to 10 kilograms than 10 tons. Even 10 kilograms would be a pretty incredible sum, right? Ooh, 10 kilograms of gold is how much? Maria, who wasn't following the story and felt like she was being spoken to in riddles, finally found a place where she could ask us a question. It was a question I also wanted answered right then. Whether it was 10 kilograms or 10 tons, it still felt like a huge amount, but I had no idea exactly how huge. George Aniki folded his arms and tried to remember the market price of gold. Well, even the value of gold is affected by the market, and the value of physical gold can change depending on its purity and the trustworthiness of the foundry. You'd also need to pay handling fees to cash it in. However, that doesn't change the fact that it's a precious metal, and some people estimate that humanity will mine all the world's gold within half a century if gold mining continues at its current rate. Just guessing haphazardly, I think you could expect a price of about 2 million yen per kilogram. You know, him knowing this, random, just, you know, knowing the market price off the top of his head reminds me so much of Zero Escape, where it seems like every character has at least 2 wiki pages memorized and ready to pull out at any time. Like, gosh, my favorite one has to be Ice 9. Because the amount of Ice 9 is like ice, has the properties of ice, but it doesn't melt as quickly. And you know, like 3 different characters would all info dump about Ice 9 to you in different occasions, and you'd be like, I get it, Ice 9, cool. The Ice 9 is a big inside joke with me and someone else. Whoa. Just now I randomly said 10 kilograms since it sounded smaller, but even that would be worth 20 million yen, wouldn't it? Huh? I weigh 28 kilograms. Which means that if we had Maria-chan's weight in gold, we could estimate its worth at over 50 million yen. That's just unbelievable. How much would 10 tons be then? 10 kilograms is 20 million yen, which you multiply by 1,000, so, what is, add 3 more zeros to it? That's 20 billion? Huh? 20 billion yen? What the hell? How much is 20 billion yen actually worth? We can only measure it relative to our own pocketbooks. Anyway, let's say that the person's wages over a lifetime are about 200 million yen. You grow up and work like crazy, sacrificing your life for your company, and you're finally freed as you approach old age. Everything, including retirement money, might add up to about 200 million yen. In other words, that's the amount of money that'll be made through a human's life. No, you could call it the value of a life. So 100 times that sum is an unbelievable amount of money. If you work from age 20 to age 60, that's 40 years of work, so it's equal to 4,000 years of work wages. Is everybody just a human calculator? What the hell? I mean, I know the math isn't that hard, but I'm imagining they're thinking of this decently quick. Or I guess that's the curse of being in a visual novel. You don't actually know how time flows in these worlds. If you worked every day starting from the Jomon period, you'd only reach that number about now. Is 20 billion yen a lot? Heck yeah, it's a lot. Maria, you love shortcake, right? You could buy more shortcake than you could possibly eat for the rest of your life. However, while that might be possible with 20 billion yen in cash, I don't think it would be very realistic to have that much in gold bars all in one place. Just as I said, gold is extremely heavy, so it isn't exactly convenient as a method of storing wealth. Sure, you can imagine someone gathering their fortune together as incredibly high-value stocks or precious gems. You often hear of people who traded their wealth for precious gems so they could carry it around with them during the chaotic times of the war. Sorry, I am misspeaking a ton. But you don't usually hear stories of people exchanging their wealth for gold. It may be heavy, but it's the most trusted and stable form of wealth internationally, so maybe that was important? For example, bonds are just scraps of paper if the whole country goes under. You can also look at it that way. But even one 10 kilogram ingot is pretty heavy to carry around. Haven't you heard? A 50 kilogram person can't carry a 50 kilogram bag over their shoulder. With that many gold bars, the amount of labor and risk for one person would be hard to calculate. So what you're saying is, while it'd be one thing if you had a stack of banknotes worth 20 billion yen, 20 billion yen in gold would be such a big mountain that practically it'd be kind of pointless. That's right. Although the legend of the gold does have a pretty interesting ring to it, just the part about the 10 tons of gold makes it pretty much impossible. If you think about it logically like that, it sounds obviously fake. Kinda brings you back down to reality. Anyway, that's grandfather for you. Maybe he exaggerated the story of how some kind, wealthy person gave him a loan by saying he got 10 tons of gold from a witch. Even the number 10 tons feels pretty symbolic. You mean like his gratitude for the money he borrowed was worth 10 tons of gold or something? Maybe some rich man's leisured wife generously granted it to grandfather. And maybe he started calling this person a witch. I see. Jessica's example isn't bad. Someone who generously lent a huge sum of money to grandfather when he still had no reputation might as well be called a witch. Furthermore, grandfather actually did use that money to build a vast amount of wealth later on. The fact that this person was so great at judging people might also justify calling her a witch. Also, since she went through the trouble of lending all that money, she might have enthusiastically overseen how it was spent. The decision to unexpectedly get involved with the occupying forces and profit from the Korean War demands might have been inspired by the witch herself. That might explain why he claimed to have received both wealth and honor from her. I see. Are we ever gonna go to the beach? Like, I was promised some beach time. You need some more slice of life. So, in other words, this witch lent grandfather the funds necessary to revive the Ushirmiya family, and he owed her big time. And then he felt so grateful that he had that huge painting drawn and displayed. Yeah, it's not that crazy a story. It's even possible this person was an old granny who looked like a witch. Maybe grandfather idolized her and that's why he had her drawn to look so beautiful. I'll bet if we ever did meet this person, she wouldn't be nearly this pretty. Yeah, definitely. I'd certainly say so. Wink. That's possible. The name Beatrice sounds pretty Western, and if you think about how everyone in our family has Western names, maybe even the name Beatrice is the result of grandfather trying to rearrange some Japanese person's name to make it sound Western. I get it. That means this pretty girl doesn't exist outside the picture. Guess that means I won't be able to rub those out. In the first place, isn't having a witch pretty bizarre by itself? Like you could find something like that anywhere on Earth. I laughed and made fun of the witch, trying to distinguish myself from the kid I was 6 years ago who feared the witch of the forest, when Maria tugged on my sleeve. Battler! Oh, she's gonna kill you, Battler! She's gonna kill you, Battler! I could tell by how hard she pulled that she was a bit upset. What is it, Maria? Oh, Beatrice exists! Maria stared up at me. She had on her usual sour look, but I could tell that she was angry by the color of her eyes. What, blue? Witches exist! Witches exist! Well, sure they do exist if you turn the TV on and watch anime or something. Exist! Witches exist! I started getting impatient, not knowing why Maria was jumping on me like this. Then Jessica tapped me on the shoulder and whispered, Dumbass, you're smashing a kid's dream. It's like telling her Santa's not real, idiot. Maria really believes things like witches and Beatrice exist. Come to think of it, Maria Chan in social studies at your school, when you were asked to write that you wanted to be what you wanted to be when you grew up, you wrote a witch, didn't you? What does that have to do with social studies? That'd be more of like a homeroom or English kind of thing. I mean, she's 9 years old. Gosh, what grade was I in when I was 9? Oh man, hold on. I'm gonna do some math real quick. Okay, 9. Oh, 4th grade? I think I was in 3rd or 4th grade, I want to say. Yeah, that seems... Yeah, I still had homeroom. Then. Tears started to run from the corners of her eyes. I see. To a girl who wants to become a witch in the future, the existence of Beatrice was proof that witches do exist in this world, and was therefore an image that she yearned after and admired. And I just crushed it. Exist! Witches exist! But Battler still doesn't believe! It's okay, witches do exist. I believe it. George and Iki kneeled down and hugged Maria's head. Watching this, Jessica poked my side. Apologize, you fucking idiot. So that's what it is. It's like shouting that Santa Claus doesn't exist in front of a child who believes in him on Christmas Eve. the kind of guy who likes to shatter kids' dreams. I just did, but... Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to make fun of your dreams, so I apologize. Beatrice does exist. Even now, she's living in the forest and comes to the mansion every night to peek in and see what everyone's doing. So you shouldn't go into the forest. At night, you mustn't stare into the dark forest. You might be seen by the witch of the forest, Beatrice. After all, grandmother said so. Really? Battler really believes? No. Yep, I believe. Sorry for doubting it. Come on, let's make up. I stuck out my hand. Maria grabbed it with her tiny hand and we made up. Maria didn't grumble any more than that, so George and Aki and Jessica were relieved. I need to see something real quick. When I was looking at the characters. Hold on. Let me look at everyone first before I say something stupid. Uh-huh. Oh, I didn't mean to switch it to the wrong one. Okay, so... everyone has, like, these black, gray kind of eyes, and then Maria has blue eyes, or at least in these it looks more purple. Maybe indigo, but it looks more purple, but she has, like, blue eyes. Could that be her father? Or something else? Oh, so this is where all of you were. I was sure you had just left to go to the beach. Shannon-chan, carrying a basket, was surprised to find us all gathered in front of the portrait. Ah, Shannon. Well, this is the first time Battler has seen Beatrice's portrait. You're just fascinated by it. That's right, it certainly is fascinating. Beatrice-sama is truly beautiful. I am sure that she captivated the master. I feel like every time my voice for Shannon changes, but that's also because there's a week in between all these videos, and it's been like a month since she was introduced. In addition to the patron theory, there's also a theory that she was grandfather's first love. Either way, although it's been several decades since he met her, even now she holds a special place in his heart. Which must mean that he's still captivated by her. Sheesh. That must have made grandmother pretty jealous, huh? I'm not really sure, but that might actually be true. Apparently, grandmother believed he was cheating on her with some blonde. Ooh, a good smell. That smell coming from Shannon. Maria, sniffing, approached the basket Shannon-chan was holding with interest. After hearing that, I noticed a fragrant scent with a touch of vanilla. I apologize. I was told by Kumasawa-san to bring them to everyone. What is it, I wonder? Oh, excellent. Cookies. Ooh, wanna eat cookies. Wanna eat cookies. Ooh. Please, eat as much as you would like. But, would it be appropriate to serve cookies in a place like this, in front of the portrait? Shannon-chan sent us a glance that seemed to ask what we wanted to do about it. Well, yeah, I guess eating here would be bad manners, generally speaking. Maria, why don't we eat someplace else? Let's put the cookies in the bento and have a picnic. Ooh, have a picnic, have a picnic! If we can eat cookies, let's go! Yeah, let's go get some fresh air. We shouldn't stuff ourselves right in front of the witch. That's right. Didn't we say that we wanted to go down to the beach in the first place? Let's go, let's go. Shannon-chan, sorry, but could I ask you to get us a blanket to sit on and some flasks of tea? Right, certainly. Shannon-chan received her instructions and gracefully bowed before retracing her steps. We headed for the beach on our own. Everyone headed for the entrance in a group. Feeling as though that witch was staring down at our backs, I turned around once more. Ooh, Battler, you still don't believe? Nope, I believe. Yep, It'd be so much cooler that way, I certainly believe. The gold which Beatrice gave grandfather 10 tons of gold. Yep, and that gold might be sleeping around here somewhere. For sure. She's real. Besides, didn't grandfather write that strange epitaph as though challenging us to find it if we can? I'd say that kind of adventure story is way better. 20 billion yen worth of gold, huh? Even if we split it up between the 4 of us, that'd still be a ridiculous amount of money. Yeah, 5 billion each. 5 billion yen for each of us. Incredible. With that kind of money, you could probably make any sort of business prosper. In fact, we could live our whole lives fabulously without working at all. Ooh, I don't want 5 billion yen. I want cookies. Cookies. It's like that Bare Naked Ladies song. If I had $1 million. Oh, I love Bare Naked Ladies. If you've never listened to them before, great band. I've seen them in concert. On my, it was the day before my birthday, but still, it was a pretty good birthday gift. Gosh, what a great band. Even if they are Canadian. Maria would take cookies over money. Still, 5 billion yen, that's like a dream. Oh, I guess we're back with the adults. So, still no beach. Insane. Ridiculous. Is it possible that you all truly believe in Father's legend of the gold? Kraus? I feel like this might be a Kraus. Because he's like that. Of course we don't believe that story about a witch giving him gold. But there's no mistake about the gold itself. The fact that Father obtained gold bars from an unknown source has been confirmed in several ways. We've heard that, before the president of the Marusu company died, Father showed him a large pile of gold somewhere. Father used that man's claim as proof that there were 10 tons worth. That's just the nonsense of a senile old man. Along with Father, he was just fabricating a story. You can't take it seriously. If that gold didn't exist, he wouldn't have been able to gather so much funding. Before the president died, he was a person with such a sincere personality that he earned the respect of the business world. He wouldn't have become a partner to such fraud. Aniki, the president of Marusu, definitely saw it. 10 tons of it, clearly, with his own eyes. Even more, Dad let the president take 1 ingot at random and have it examined. The results of the examination showed that the 10-kilogram ingot was 99.99% pure. He said that the Ushirimiya family crest, the one-winged eagle, was imprinted on it. Almost instantly, the Ushirimiya legend of the gold spread among the fixtures of the business world. Gold from an unknown foundry has a poor rate of conversion into money. Thinking that it was a chance for decisive profits, they accepted it as collateral, and as a result, Father was able to receive massive loans. Is there no limit to the absurdity you're willing to accept? How old are you people? Are you still taking that nursery tale you heard as a child seriously? Where is the proof that this 10 tons of gold even exists? Aren't you just parroting the lies of Father and a few of those close to him? Of course, it's just a story. But still, Aniki, the amount of money Dad raised required a suitable amount of collateral. Even if the gold itself was just a rumor, it's an undoubtable fact that he showed them a treasure of comparable worth. Comparable. Hey, you guys say comparable. Comparable. It was just an illusion of money created by our penniless father. He acted as though he actually had gold that didn't exist, fooling his sponsors. It was probably the gamble of a lifetime. Luckily, his use of those funds proved successful. The Korean War demands hadn't come, and the Ushirimiya family had not been restored. Father would probably have been hounded as the crook of the century. So are you saying that the gold never existed and Father made it all up? That is not your father, bro. I know, it's like, customary to say that to your father, about your father-in-law. But still, it's so funny. It's like, who are you, bro? Of course. And because of that, the illusion of gold became a mere inconvenience once he'd achieved enough success. That's why later on, Father added all that about a witch and black magic, weakening the credibility of the entire story. In other words, he revealed that the illusion of the gold was a fabrication. If he claimed to have received the gold from a witch, no one would believe that it existed at all. Right? It's also possible, he said, for all of your sakes. Nevertheless, here comes stupid offspring wanting to divide up this non-existent gold along with the rest of the inheritance. Rosa, don't tell me that you even believe in a fabrication like this. I can't prove whether or not Father really had the gold. I just want to claim my rightful share as one of Father's 4 children. Huh. It seems even you have started to talk that way, Rosa. Okay, wrap it up, Kraus. We know you're one of the most money-hungry members of this family. I see, so that's what you're all getting at. You're trying to claim that I'm attempting to keep all the gold for myself. Nissan, you've gathered a massive supply of funds. That's a fact. If we rule out the possibility that you've been embezzling Father's personal funds, then there's only one possibility left, right? Haniki, we've been thinking that you might have found those 10 tons of gold bars. Ridiculous. Such a thing never existed in the first place. Now explain yourself. Was it embezzlement of Father's assets or Father's hidden gold? How could you have gathered so much funding if not by one of these methods? Even I have many friends in the political and financial realms. I've earned their cooperation, nothing more. And on that matter, I have no responsibility to explain myself to you. You understand, don't you? There are some topics that ought not to be spoken of. If you insist on that point, that's all well and good for now. But Aniki, that doesn't have long. Nobody can ensure that he'll live to see this day next year. The inheritance process will begin at the instant of Dad's death. We'll arrange for lawyers and accountants who are impartial to all of us and have them inspect Dad's financial situation. At that time, if it comes to light that you've unjustly interfered with Father's money, you understand, right? I don't have a clue what you're talking about. You're starting to make me feel as indignant as my wife was. Of course, Father's gold is part of Father's fortune. We understand it's money you can't reveal openly, but the 4 siblings should have an equal right to it. In other words, we're gonna have your financial situation investigated as well as Dad's, to determine whether you've been hoarding your gold or not. Isn't this a great opportunity? Right now, prove the existence of your so-called support from friends and acquaintances. That way we can sportingly apologize for foolishly doubting you. Right, Rosa? That's right. Kraus-Nissan, you're the one who's dodging the issue. If you were guiltless, you could just prove that you were in the right, but you aren't even trying to do so. However, Aniki, we still have to consider your position here. As Dad's representative, you're probably bearing a larger share of the burden that we are. We've been living terribly relaxed lives until now, so it wouldn't be fair for the rest of us to complain without taking your efforts into account. Huh. It seems you cannot make up your mind whether to flatter me or slander me. Please, get to the point. Basically, randomly investigating nitpicky aspects of Father's wealth seems like a pretty crude way to go about it. As you said, Kraus-Nissan, there may have been movements in money that are difficult to explain. We've come to consult with you today while fully aware of that point. Both sides stand to gain from talking about this now. A consultation? Huh. When the inheritance is divided, you'll be rewarded for your years of hard work taking care of Dad by an agreement that's generous in your favor. Don't misunderstand us, Nissan. We aren't saying that we'll abandon our rights, but when we make our claim for what we deserve, we might as well offer a generous understanding for your position. That's what we mean. In other words, if you accept our conditions, And when the inheritance is divided, we'll leave the investigation of father's financial situation to you, Kraus-san. All of the siblings, from Ava downward, suspected that Kraus was trying to steal their father's wealth. So, letting Kraus report the state of that wealth was extremely contradictory and a huge concession. If, as they claimed, Kraus was actually embezzling money, Kraus would be able to hide that fact. Besides which, it'd be possible for him to control the distribution of the inheritance in a manner favorable to himself. Kraus, realizing that this sounded too good to be true, couldn't help but feel suspicious. He couldn't help but worry about what they'd ask for in exchange. Bro thinks he's Dio. What is with all the After mistrusting me completely, you now say that you're willing to restore your confidence in me as an eldest sibling? So what is it you want in return? Just what we deserve as siblings. You aren't that kind of person who'd steal Dad's property. But you also aren't being financed by some patron. Considering all that, there is a certain explanation that'd satisfy the three of us. Nissan, you found 10 tons of gold and used that as collateral to gain some funding. Gather some funding, my bad. Yes, just like Father did in the past, right? If that's the case, there won't be any funny business in Father's finances. You've always been a good son, looking after Father. Why'd we mistrust a person like that? You're being so roundabout, I can barely understand you. Please speak in clearer and more practical terms. Our first condition. Aniki, you must admit that you found Dad's gold. Are you asking me to admit I possess gold that doesn't exist? Our second condition. You'll acknowledge that each sibling has a right to a share of the gold, and you will pay out those shares. How foolish. With that non-existent 20 billion yen of gold, that would be 5 billion yen per person. Are you telling me to pay a total of 15 billion yen? Well, dude, you can't have the lion's share. Ridiculous. Keep listening till the end. We know that much money can't just pop up out of nowhere. We're not asking you to make it impossible. Deal. Of course, regarding the portion of the gold, we plan to reward you for your hard work until now. Our third condition. The portion of the gold to the one bearing the title of successor to the Ushirmiya family will be 50%. The remainder will be considered the fair share of the siblings and divided up. Of course, this also includes you, Kraus-san. Of the 20 billion, 12.5 billion will go to Aniki. 2.5 billion will go to Eva Nissan. 2.5 billion will go to me. And 2.5 will go to Rosa. That division scheme makes me so grateful. I could cry. So you're saying, for the sake of the gold that doesn't exist, I must pay you 7.5 billion yen. What's wrong? Oh, sorry, wrong voice. What's wrong? Nissan, your share is 5 times the size of ours. These are such good terms, I'd be jumping for joy. Our fourth condition. The gold will be liquidated and distributed along with the inheritance at the time of Father's death. However, as a deposit, 10% of our portions are to be paid to us promptly. These payments must be made before March of next year. What do you think, Kraus-san? This is an ideal chance for you to restore the trust regarding your handling of Father's assets, isn't it? Of course, it might be impossible to get a whole 7.5 billion yen before Father dies. But it should be possible for you to manage a deposit of 750 million, right? Paying 700 million yen in half a year might sound like a pain, but you should be able to manage it, what with all your friends in the political and business spheres. Normally, we'd hope to receive the 7.5 billion right now, all at once. But out of concern for you, we'll show our sincerity by asking for only 10% of that for the time being. The remaining 90% can wait until the inheritance is distributed. See? Even you'd be capable of managing a mere 10% to show your sincerity. So you're trying to sell me the right to assess father's financial situation for 750 million yen? How impressive. You all certainly have grown. To think that I'm now the one being offered deals. Nissan, if you accept these terms, the rest of us siblings will leave the investigation of father's assets to you. However, the results of that investigation will be subject to scrutiny. It's only natural, right? We'd be so sad if you managed things so that our 7.5 billion shares shrank. We'll avoid complaining as a general rule. Just make sure you do it neat and tidy. As long as you don't try anything that's blatantly obvious, we've got no intention of stirring things up. We want our inheritance quickly, too. We don't want it to get all drawn out and left hanging. If a complaint is made, who would carry out the follow-up investigation? We don't mind if it's you. This is probably the first and last chance for our siblings to reach a consensus. I believe it won't come to that. Looks like even you can speak up now and then, Rosa. By this point, it's obvious that Kraus wasn't at all trusted as the oldest sibling, so there's no need to go into detail. The formerly tyrannical oldest brother had always abused his privileges and violated the other siblings' shares. It was in response to this that the other three, now adults, were finally teaming up and striking back for the first time. Sorry, but there's more. Our fifth condition. This decision must take precedence over father's will. Later on, we don't want some will to appear and make this decision completely irrelevant. I see that you're very cautious. Then let me ask, if the gold really were found, what would you do? Since you'll be making payments to us for what the gold's worth, the rest of us, really, don't care if we ever see the gold or not. You can think of our share as an advance payment. It's good to have dreams, isn't it? You plan to turn this island into a resort, right? You might stumble upon the gold by chance during construction. Ava let out a high-pitched laugh. Kraus watched, but didn't even flinch. Let me add a seventh condition before I explain. What happened to the sixth one? Did we skip the sixth one? In the situation that any sibling other than myself finds the gold, they will immediately turn it over to me. Yes, of course, we'll hold on to it for you. There's a play on words. Of course, the others, who are forcing Kraus to pay money for some non-existent gold, wouldn't save Kraus his portion if they actually found it. From the beginning, this deal had been nothing more than a threat directed at Kraus. Regardless of the actual facts, it was still extremely likely that Kraus was embezzling his father's assets. When Kinzo faced death at last and had his inheritance distributed, some unpleasant facts would surely come to light. That could easily become fatal to Kraus. The others had spotted this weak point and were threatening their brother under the veil of compromise, trying to wring a huge sum of money out of him. However, they had forgotten one thing. They'd forgotten that their brother's brain moved so swiftly, at least when it came to cunning and guile, that they'd been forced to band together to combat him. While Ava couldn't stop smiling, sure for victory, Kraus let out a gloating laugh to show how relaxed he was. Ha ha ha. This all makes for such a touching story. My estrangement from you all has left a deep pain in my heart. If accepting these conditions mean we siblings can become friends again, It would please me to no end. I'd be happy to agree to your deal. Rejoice, Rosa. We have reached an understanding. Rosa's expression dimmed. It was never a good sign when her brother started talking like this. Ava also keenly picked up on this. That's why she was unable to wipe away a sense of unease, even though Kraus had obediently accepted the deal. My, how obedient of you. It's not like you at all, Nissan. Wow, I can't believe Kraus so obediently accepted this. He's been so obedient. What a cruel thing to say. Are you implying I have some ulterior motive? Of course I don't. I'm just the same as all of you. Just the same as all of you. He seemed to emphasize just that one part. The color of Rudolph's face darkened. To him, it sounded as though Kraus was saying, I have a plan similar to yours. So Rudolph panicked. He rushed to bring this nearly resolved discussion to a conclusion. Then we're good. So, Aniki, would you mind signing here? This is a written contract summarizing the discussion we've just been having. There's one for each of us. Everyone will sign for the same contents. Rudolph took 4 written contracts out of his breast pocket that had how small are these? Because that is a tiny-ass pocket, bro. Unless they're folded up, but still, I wouldn't want to fold up an important contract if that were me. The 7th condition he proposed will, of course, be added right now. Don't worry about that. Aniki, need a pen? Rudolph took a fountain pen out of his breast pocket and offered it to Kraus. Man, he is Mary Poppins' breast pocket. Kraus made as if to accept, but then, with a small laugh, he drew back his hand without taking it and spoke. Actually, in order to ensure that this agreement is properly executed, I'd like to propose an amendment on just one point. As soon as Kraus said that single sentence, all of the siblings felt as though something ominous was creeping up their backs at the same time. That won't do. We've already decided, haven't we? Just stay quiet and sign it. Why are you in such a hurry, Ava? Of course I'll sign. I promise the share of the gold going to all of you will be 7.5 billion yen. I also promise that when Father's inheritance is distributed, I will cleanly and neatly liquidate it. However, there is one point that I simply must insist that you compromise on. What are you talking about? What don't you like? The part about promptly paying 10% of your share, 750 million yen. As you pointed out, my financial situation is far from prosperous. While I can guarantee that I will collect on various future investments, I must admit that I am quite poor at the present moment. In short, I have absolutely no money that I can move around right now. I am incompetent, and my business sense is dull. Since I am the loser you all claim me to be, I don't have the power to move 750 million yen in just half of a year. That cannot be true. Are you trying to deceive us with such a half-baked trick? At the time of the division of the inheritance, I will liquidate everything at once. Remove the condition that I must pay you 10% in advance. That is the only condition under which I am willing to sign. Krasny-san, that 10% is nothing more than a number to measure your sincerity, isn't it? All things being equal, you shouldn't have any room to negotiate at all. We're doing you a huge favor by offering to let things slide for just 10% in good faith money. Now that we've explained that, you're rejecting our offer would seriously damage our trust and relationship. Right? Hideyoshi had a humble expression on his face and was rubbing his hands together. But his eyes weren't calm at all. Kraus had already seen through to the shadow in the depths of those eyes. Why are you all in such a rush? Or could it be that you're afraid of something? Rosa, won't you tell me alone? Secretly, so the rest of the siblings can't hear. It's not as though I quoted Aniki. All we're asking is whether you're gonna sign or not. Just forget about making any strange deals or any other suspicious moves. Oh? You say I have no room to negotiate? Are you trying to claim that I am in a weak position, which therefore puts us in an unequal relationship? Shivers began to crawl up Rudolph's back. He began to feel himself getting overwhelmed by the height of his brother's completely insurmountable wall and the long shadow that had existed since they were children. Give me a second, I gotta cough. Ooh, sorry about that. Shouldn't deals be made between those on even footings? From my perspective, this deal will help restore the long lost trust of my younger siblings and deepen the love between us. It's an old problem that's been eating at me, and one I would prefer to resolve as soon as possible. I would be overjoyed if we could resolve it today. However, it seems I'm not the only one who'd be quite glad to close this deal quickly. Am I wrong, Rosa? Kraus stared at each of his siblings. They avoided his gaze with animal-like instinct. Only Hideyoshi was slow in avoiding it. So he was caught by Kraus's gaze. Hideyoshi-san, I hear your company has been doing extremely well lately. At a brisk pace, it went public, and both its track record and stock prices have soared. I am truly jealous. We aren't here to talk about my husband. However, it is unfortunate that you have neglected your stockholders. It's even more unfortunate that you were unable to solidify your base when you became stock listed. Before you realized it, some bad-natured colleagues of yours had brought up a huge share of your company's stock, right? How could you know about that? The same way you knew about me. If it's possible to collect evidence proving that no one would offer a loan to me, then it's possible for me to collect evidence on you. Is it really so unexpected as that? Kraus grinned broadly. In contrast, Hideyoshi's face was rapidly turning pale. Hideyoshi's company was a restaurant chain management company that he'd started from nothing. Thanks to Hideyoshi's management efforts, the company had achieved success repeatedly, expanding its range, and a petition to make its stock-listed company had recently succeeded. The greatest advantage of being in the stock-holding system is that you can sell stock certificates and gain a large amount of financing. That amount tends to be far greater than a business's normal profits. So this is an extremely effective way to gather massive funds to expand a business even further. However, in exchange for financing the company, the stockholders gain certain rights. They're given rights that allow them to observe and guide the company they've invested in, leading to profits even greater than their original investments. This right is guaranteed to the stockholders, and they sometimes use it to dismiss ineffectual management. The right allows them to keep an eye on management and prevent the money they've invested in the company from going to waste. However, if they use it forcibly, they can eject the former management and take over the company. After all, dismissing management and nominating new management are powers held by the general body of all shareholders. That power is determined by the majority decision of the stockholders. And people who hold more stock get to cast more votes. In other words, if some person or a group holds a majority of the stock, they can freely chase out the old management and make the president anyone they'd like. If they want, it's also possible for them to make themselves president. Most companies take various defensive measures to stop malicious people from buying up their stock and threatening their position. like ensuring that lots of stock is bought by those close to them, such as company employees. However, Hideyoshi's company had only recently become stock listed, and he hadn't had time to strengthen those defensive measures. Or maybe Hideyoshi was so engrossed in the management of his company that he couldn't properly understand the dangers of being stock listed. It's hard to say whether he should be viewed as a kind-hearted manager immersed in the work of management, or a foolish manager who had his feet swept out from under him. In other words, there existed some people who wouldn't let him get away with that naivety unscathed. They began repeatedly buying up stock in Hideyoshi's company, rapidly gaining such strength that they couldn't be ignored. Then they sent anonymous documents to the shareholders in an attempt to gain control of a majority. Documents read, "The current management continues to make pointless investments and is ignoring the needs of the stockholders. Let us force the current management to retire, cut the current wasted investments, and let this company be born again as one that gives more back to the stockholders." It's very difficult to make the actual state of a company's management known. The fruits of Hideyoshi's sleepless nights and constant concern for his company were cruelly distorted, and he lost the trust of his stockholders. Thanks to these efforts, this group had almost collected a majority of the company's stock. At that point, even Hideyoshi noticed and started to buy back the stock, but the stockholders realized that the company was undergoing an acquisition maneuver, and each demanded a ridiculous price for the shares that Hideyoshi was trying to buy back. They continually tortured Hideyoshi, who had no leeway in the negotiation of the price. One of the certainties of capitalism is that the price will rise when two parties vie for the same thing. And one of the certainties of democracy is that the majority controls everything. So in the end, whoever manages to buy up the most stock wins. Put another way, whoever has the most money wins. Unless Hideyoshi could obtain a large sum of money at this critical time, he could easily lose all he had built so far. Therefore, more than anything else, he wanted a lot of money right now. He couldn't wait for the division of Kinzo's inheritance since no one knew when he would die. And you, Rudolph, have been in quite a lot of trouble lately too, haven't you? You always hear people say it's terrifying overseas, but it seems it really is true. American trials are settled quite emotionally. They never hand down generous judgments to foreigners. Weren't you advised by your lawyer that making a settlement with the other party would be more economical in the long run? What's this all about? Well, it's just some trouble from work. No big deal. Nothing you can't settle with money. Kiri immediately guessed the meaning behind the subtle expression on Rudolph's face. Her husband had gotten wrapped up in some kind of trouble without her knowledge. He had been worrying over it alone. That's right. In this world, anything can be settled with money. After all, it can even buy back the broken bonds between siblings. America is very fussy about the violation of rights. But with money, anything can be settled. Long live capitalism. Though, rumor has it that the settlement money could be as high as several $1,000,000. Rudolph had been building a large amount of wealth with a certain type of niche industry. However, a niche is a niche. It definitely wasn't a business exposed to the light of day. An American corporate giant was trying to accuse Rudolph's company of violating their rights. For various reasons, it was thought that victory for Rudolph in this trial would be extremely unlikely. He was being forced into an all-out surrender. But even so, there was a way for this to be resolved with money. If he could just pay that money, it might still be painful, but he'd be able to pick himself back up. But if he didn't pay, he'd lose everything. Therefore, more than anything else, he wanted a lot of money right now. Rosa, you're a good and noble little sister. You wouldn't get yourself involved in a dangerous money game. However, your soft-hearted nature has brought you trouble, hasn't it? In my opinion, becoming a co-signer for anything isn't something one should enter into lightly. That's none of your business, Krasny's son. Rosa uncharacteristically laid her bare emotions and yelled. After all, no one was supposed to know that. As Kraus watched, he let slip a muffled laugh. Without exception, every one of them, more than anything else, wanted a lot of money right now. In other words, the situation had been reversed. After all, the person the younger siblings were threatening was the only one who had no urgent need for a large sum of money. The other three, however, wanted a lot of money quickly, no matter the cost. In other words, the longer it took to establish this deal, the better position Kraus would be in. Kraus was extremely sly. He had known of their Achilles' heel from the beginning. Even so, he had not been certain. Therefore, he had hidden his knowledge until the very end, striking back only after analyzing their attitudes. If it were possible, I would like nothing more than to raise some money for my adorable siblings in their time of need. But, unfortunately, I have nothing on hand. If you know of any sponsors that might be able to raise a whole $750 million, I suggest you try there first. Kraus's elated words were so obviously detached from what he actually felt. The other siblings could do nothing more than listen, grinding their teeth. They could think of a sponsor that convenient, they wouldn't have kept up this charade. They had entered this huge battle specifically because they had exhausted all other options. However, if you do insist on relying on your big brother, I wouldn't mind using my influence to help you find such a sponsor. Oh wait, I do believe you said I have no influence. Well then, I'm afraid I won't be much help to you. Kraus's low, gloating laugh began to fill the parlor. The younger siblings, who had been driving the oldest brother into a corner until a moment ago, could do nothing more than grimace and grind their teeth. Ava, don't make me laugh, as if I'd ever put myself in your debt. Don't make me laugh. Don't make me laugh. If we relied on you, how exactly would you help us? I told you, didn't I? All I can do is find other sponsors for you. Of course, I will negotiate for the highest interest rate possible. Damn you, taking advantage of us. Honey, please calm down. I am calm. I'm extremely cool. You bastard! Kiri grabbed her husband's hand, but that action made him feel even more pitiful, so Rudolph shook it off. Kraus laughed as though watching something highly amusing. In times like these, it certainly would be nice to find Father's hidden gold. If you did, you could split it up into 2.5 billion yen portions right now. How sad. How sad. How very sad. How extremely, totally, truly, hopelessly sad. Tonight, let us all drink together, as we solve the riddle of Beatrice's epitaph, and discover the location of Father's hidden gold. If we 4 friendly siblings work together, there is surely no puzzle we can't solve. And that is where will we be leaving off for this episode of Umineko When They Cry. God damn. Wasn't that an experience? They all truly desperately want money. a lot of money right now, don't they? Whew, things are really heating up, huh? I can't wait to see where this goes next. I'm actually really getting into this, and it sucks I only have time for one of these a week. But, man, what a ride. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thanks for sticking around this long if you did. See you next time. Bye.